Welcome to the Heart of Racing. This is the Good Oil episode ahead of the Hunter meeting in Newcastle and Thousand Guineas Day at Caulfield. So don't be shocked. The Thousand Guineas Day with the Sir Rupert Clarke Stakes, both Group 1 races, is at Caulfield. It's going to bookend the carnival now. It used to be the Sandown Guineas Day and Sandown Cup and the Zipping Stakes, but it's all changing around a bit because that's what racing's doing at the moment. Will Friedman joins me. How are you, Will?
Good. I actually like the 1,000 Guineas where it is. I think this is a much better race than it was last year. Last year, the 1,000 Guineas surprises trainers. You're like, oh yeah, the 1,000 Guineas on, you know.
It used to be on the Wednesday
Like
with
before-
the Coogee handicap before the
it's-
Caulfield Cup on the
It
Saturday.
didn't work. Like horses that won it never went and won other races. But this looks like a fairly good field. And I mean, we'll get onto it later, but I think the favourite's going to be hard to beat in that.
Yeah, and so the Zipping Classic Day, that old traditional Sandown Day, is actually going to be run at Caulfield on December 2. So they talk about trying to keep it traditional in Melbourne, but they are changing things around because they've got to match what's going on in Sydney.
Mate, Melbourne is a basket case for the most part. You see what they were doing in the AFL? They all complained because the opening round wasn't in Melbourne. It's supposed to be a national comp. It seems like Victoria always for cry me, foul me, it seems.
We're going to get stuck into the Victorians a little bit on this show today because there's a couple of issues coming up in the Gates Fly segment. But let's go straight to the Pineapple, the Shocker of the Week award for the bad ride. And as I watched this ride transpire, I said to myself, if Nash doesn't win on this horse, I'm going to get a text from Will. Soon enough, they went to the finish line, and within 10 seconds, you text me and said, all it said was pineapple.
Mate, I'm passionate about this one. This is a stinker of Nash. Nash is in the best form he's been in since he came back to Sydney.
For sure.
So I'm not
For sure,
doubting
he's
that.
riding well.
I
But
always like to pre-curse with these guys before I stick the boot into them.
Soften
But I
up,
do,
yeah.
I do
Little
respect them. But so he's missed the kick on Kibosh in a 2,400 metre race.
this is at Rosehill last Saturday. Kibosh, the favourite in the 2,400 metre race.
I'm sure they had a discussion before saying, "Oh, this is a true stayer." But I went back through his form afterwards and was like, "There's a bit of an if and but on if it really stays a genuinely run 2,400." So then he missed the kick, takes his medicine, goes back, and then we sort of watch it all transpire. We get to the 1,000. The tempo is still pretty sedate, but he's on the back of Waller's other runner and ended up winning. I can't remember its name. And then at the 800 metre mark,
He took off.
went via the Cape at 1,000 knots. And not only at that point, you're either a genius or you're an Egypt.
Yeah. So sometimes a horse will just take off the 800 from midfield
And
or
keep
something
going.
and goes to the front and it keeps going.
And it's the greatest move of all time. But it happens one in every
10, 20,
1,000.
1,000.
You see it at the provincials all the time. This horse got a stitch at the 300 metre
I
mark.
know, but he took off, and then when he got to the leader, he stopped.
And then just let them all. It was just.
No.
It was not his best. It's honestly up there for the
You think
genuine. This is a
could win.
contender. This is a contender. for
Could win
sure.
the pineapple at the
Yeah.
end of the year. Rightio. Well, it was a simple one. Nash's ride on Kibosh wasn't very good. Look, it's with a little bit of sadness I'm going to dish out my sayonara. Look, the horse isn't in this weekend. It's spelling now. But I'm going to say Zaki at 9. He ran really well this spring. And though he's a length or two off, he's there-ish. But I just don't think he's going to win again. And I think at 9, Annabelle Neesham might need to pat him on the head and say, "Old boy, you did your job."
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, he's been a marvel.
Great horse.
They've looked after him magnificently well. He came over because you remember he was only a listed winner in England. So
He came over here and started braining us all on the Group
right,
1s.
so huge feather in the cap to Annabelle and the ownership group for having such a marvellous horse. But I tend to agree. Mind you, I did read in the news that James McDonald is going to ride it in its next start. So I don't know. It's not gone yet.
Once J-Mac fails on it, that's it.
Yeah, that'll be it. But my sayonara, and I look on our run sheet, and I think it's gonna be another battle. I'm off Opal Ridge. I think Opal Ridge hasn't come up this prep nearly as well as she did the prep before. Mind you, I can warrant that it's going to fall away the Hunter a little bit, and who is in form in that race? I mean, Marzu's. I guess he had somewhat of a. He somewhat recaptured his form.
I nearly put Marzu in as a sayonara, but I wanted to put Zaki in. I don't know.
I'll take Opal Ridge to be controversial, but Marzu's pretty up there.
Rightio. The So Simple, was it just Imperatrice
Yeah.
that she was better than them?
She was a class above them. Really.
My boy Buenos Noches
I
ran
saw
well.
that. I was watching it come up the inside, and I'm
You
thinking,
thought this thing's
this
gonna
is
win."
the day. This is the day. Breeny's face. I hope you did a Breeny and backed him to play.
I did. I backed him more the place than I backed him the win. I got the Quinella as well, so I'm glad I got something out of it.
You know what?
Good race.
Just on is So Simple. They did a marvelous job, the VRC, with this carnival.
The VRC part of the carnival,
Yeah.
unreal.
And it was proper racing. It
Yeah.
actually, I think it recaptured a lot of people's love for racing that week because it had been off. I felt like it hadn't been what it was for 5 years. All those fatalities in the Cup had really dampened the whole week.
And then silly Dan Andrews with the way that he treated Victorians through COVID.
Yeah.
And there were no crowds for a couple of years. It just took a while. This Cup Carnival at Flemington, I was there for Melbourne Cup Day. It was fabulous.
And the other part that is, it is a major part of it is we've gone through these 5 or 6 years or 3 or 4 years without a fatality in the Cup. I actually think the outragers are more outraged by the outragers now. Did you see all those clips of them doing
At the Bowls
slam
Club and
poetry
stuff,
and all
yeah.
that? I actually think people are now
dirty at them.
because I heard from a lot of people. I was there for a couple of days, and I can attest to this. But even on Stakes Day, they say the crowd's young at the races again.
Yeah.
It's really young, and that's important for our industry moving forward.
100%. There were really good crowds. There were 65,000 there on that Champions Day at the end. Absolutely fantastic. Let's get into Gates Fly. And the thing we want to talk about this week is Jamie Carr and the white powder scandal. Now, just to fill everyone in on what's happening very quickly, we know that Jamie Carr had that horrific fall in March. She's the champion jockey in Victoria and won a jockey's premiership. And she's known as the absolute, without doubt, one of the best jockeys in the world, the best female jockey in the world by a mile. During COVID, she had a shocker when she had that stupid party and they all got busted and everything. So that was a black mark against her name. Then, when she's recovering from that fall, she's with a couple of other people and she's filmed using like an ID card, a driver's license, to separate white powder on a table. She was doing it,
Yeah.
okay? She was charged by stewards for bringing racing into disrepute. Now, she's not charged with cocaine use or was it cocaine or anything like that. Why, people ask? Well, one, they can't prove the substance was cocaine because they haven't tested it,
Yeah.
and she hasn't presented on a race day with cocaine in the system. This is
Yeah.
about bringing it into disrepute. Her argument at the inquiry, which ridiculously Will started the day after the Cup Carnival, instead of being held in July when she was charged.
It was a farce.
It's a farce. The timing of it's a farce. But anyway, she's and her legal counsel are saying, well, I didn't bring racing into disrepute because I didn't film it and I didn't know that the other licensed person there, Ruby McIntyre, the stable hand, whom I only met 6 hours earlier, was filming. So
What a
how could I bring
garbage-
racing?
What a garbage argument! I didn't know it was being filmed, so I didn't bring racing into disrepute.
That person did because
Yeah.
they filmed it and they sent it out.
If I run around naked on Flemington, but someone else is filming it, I didn't know they were filming me running naked on Flemington, so I didn't bring racing into disrepute.
And that's what the stewards will argue. Well, you put yourself in a position.
Yeah.
And you were being filmed cutting
This
white
is-
powder on a table. Jamie Carr, when this story first broke in the Herald Sun, her immediate reaction was to put out a blistering statement ripping into News Corporation for publishing the video. Now, people can have their argument about that, but that was the first person she blamed. Now she's blaming the stable hand whom she just met. Well, what about yourself, Jamie, at some point?
But
At some point, you got to go, you know what?
But she
This
did. She did that last time when
Yeah.
it was the COVID
Party.
The COVID party. You know, like she said, "Oh, I'll go away and I'll think about it and I'll be a better person when I come back." And she hasn't been. So this is the same problem. You can trace this back to a couple of different issues. You can go back to Darren Weir. Darren Weir will eventually want to reapply for his license, but they've got to decide whether he is fit and proper to have his license. The same argument has to be put forward to Jamie Carr. She does one thing, apologizes, comes back and does another thing. She's a fantastic jockey and a great ambassador for racing when
is.
she's at her best. But the rap sheet is getting too long. You know, like even other jockeys have had misdemeanors. But if you come back and you do it again, and we're not talking 5 years ago. We're talking 2 years ago.
Yeah,
You know,
it was
and there was an
recent.
injury
It was
between
recent.
then. So
Yeah.
it's I'm
I feel for her because of the fall and all of those things.
but I'm losing patience.
But if she'd stuck her hand up back in June, July when she was charged, she could have served a suspension then or paid the fine then, and it'd be all over. But instead, we're still going.
Yeah, that's a different issue. But I'm starting to think she doesn't at the moment. Whatever the punishment is, and people thought the punishment for the COVID party was significant. It's obviously not
Wasn't
significant.
enough.
It's not significant enough for her to be like, I don't want to put myself in these positions anymore.
So that's been adjourned, that inquiry. That I think
Picks up
November
it's the next
24 or something.
oh, so week
next
after
weekish.
next.
Yeah, something like that. It'll be picked up again. Hey, while we're talking about Melbourne, so, Melbourne's often been smarting about Sydney and the rivalry and the carnivals and the races and the black type and the Group 1s, whatever, right? But they tried to match what New South Wales was doing by putting a big race on in the autumn, the old traditional time for Sydney, which is the All-Star Mile. And it was an interesting concept where basically the VRC put $5 million up for a mile race, All-Star Mile. The public would vote, and then there'd be a stack of
It's a
hand-picked horses.
concept that's worked in Japan. They have a
Right.
race like this where they actually vote in horses that they want to compete. So it's a proven model, bit like how the Everest came from the Pegasus in America. So it was
yeah.
a slot race there. So it's a similar kind of thing. But yeah, as we're going to highlight, they've sort of changed.
They've changed it all now because as it transpired, so with the votes, right? So every person in Tasmania was voting for their champion. When I was doing my radio show in Brisbane for 3 years, the Looks Like Elvis connections would email me every second day saying, can you plug Looks Like Elvis so we can get votes for the All-Star Mile? So some people were gung-ho on it, but trainers didn't like it because they didn't know if their horse was going to get in.
You know what would be...
So they didn't map out a preparation for it. So the VRC or the Melbourne race, Victorian Racing Authorities are now going to have 8 races, starting with the Rupert Clark on Saturday. Winning, you're in. 2 of those races are in New Zealand, and then 8 horses will be chosen to be in the race, so you can put it in your campaign.
Yeah, but they're getting selected by a panel. I
Yeah,
imagine.
so...
But, it'd be an interesting thing. So the All-Star Mile is at...
Well, they move it around.
Right.
So
from
I'm not
club
too
to club.
Yeah, they move it around. I'm not too sure next year. I think it might go back to Flemington.
Well, if
It's going to be ahead of the Australian
Why
Cup.
don't they have have a group of horses, for instance, in the spring rather, and say this is a group of horses. You come into Flemington, or you come in for Cox Plate Day. If you want to, you can go and vote there. Stop people distorting the votes. You got to go to the racetrack to vote. You'd no longer have people. You've got to nominate
having
for those.
this skewed vote
Yeah,
situation.
and it's with the way technology's going, and to be fair, racing's not the height of technology. They're still handwriting.
They are
registration forms.
Racing's technology is poor.
Yeah, but so they're not going to be able to keep up with people distorting that voting system. But I don't mind the concept. I don't mind the fact that now it's going to be a better field either. 4 million. This will prove it. We talk about it all the time. Does $1 million at the top end make any difference? Are they still going to run round if it's 4 rather than it being if it's 5?
They've
Of course
taken
they
the
will.
prize money back from $5 million to $4 million.
Yeah, it makes no. I'm actually for that. Like 4 million, 2 million to the winner's still a
lot of money.
So it'll be interesting, but they're chopping and changing, which I don't mind, but just don't say that you're the ones that love tradition. We're not going to chop and change. We're the rock of racing.
Because you will chop and change, and which is what you have to do with new concepts. You have to what works
Interestingly
and what
though,
doesn't.
the pattern, they can move a Group 1 from here to here. No worries. It's
Yeah, well,
just
they've-
moving a Group 1.
Yeah, they've moved the Sir Rupert Clark and the 1,000 Guineas, and they're
So
still Group 1s.
They're still Group 1s. But as soon as there's a new race that's somewhere, no, it has to go through the patent committee. It's like,
Even the name, the patent committee, gives me that.
yeah, imagine if
Tom
you're,
Tits.
yeah, if you go into a job interview and you say, well, yes, I'm on the patent committee for racing. I reckon you still look like a tosser.
They think
Leave
you're
me
in.
out.
They think you're in the fashion section or something, the patent committee. Let's get into this week's big ones. We'll go straight to Newcastle. The Hunter, which is a relatively new race. So we have the Hunter at Newcastle, and then the following week we have the Gong at Kembla. So the Hunt is an interesting race tomorrow because you've got a clash of worlds. You've got Marzu coming from the Everest. You've got a couple of other horses that are coming out of the Kosciuszko.
Yep.
Then throw a few others in. Now, don't be caught out with the Hunter because the 1,000 Guineas is on and a lot of horses were dual acceptors. Now,
And the Sir Rupert Clark, you mean?
Sorry, the Sir Rupert Clark. So you've got I Am Me was a dual selector.
Going to Melbourne.
So it's going to go to Melbourne. Okay, so we already know Straight Acer
Yeah.
for Ed Cummings is going to Melbourne.
Yep.
It's been scratched from the Hunter. Villana to be ridden by Damien Oliver at the Sir Rupert Clark. It's been scratched from the Hunter, as has Ayrton. So those 4 horses will be out. IME's not out yet, but you're saying it is. So Marzu,
But
550
shows you there's still a desire
for
to
Group
win
1.
to win a Group 1. And
Because the Hunter doesn't have black type status.
no, it doesn't. And I don't know whether it should or it shouldn't, but
It's got $2 million prize.
yeah. And how much is the Sir Rupert Clark worth? I wonder. I don't
I'll
know.
have to look it up.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, as I said, Sir Rupert Clark can just move its race 2 weeks later. Like, maybe Racing New South Wales should have been smarter and moved to Group 1 there and then made it the Hunter 2 years later.
Yeah.
Just renamed the Group 1 that had already moved to Newcastle. Maybe moving tracks is a problem. I don't know. I don't know the rules on that.
Okay, so Marzu will it and Far Too Easy. Marzu, there's so many question marks. So it and Far Too Easy will be the favourites. The market's going to shift. They're 550 now, but that's IME
Yep.
still in at 650. Opal Ridge, I imagine it'll be probably 7s or 8s. Coal Crusher, King of Sparta.
I've got a soft spot for King of Sparta. He pops up.
Yeah,
you know,
he does pop up, and when he wins, you go, "Oh my god!"
I should have seen that. So here's my tip, but it's a race. It's not a great race. It's a race.
It's a race.
It's worth more than it should. Like you wouldn't expect.
But the people of Newcastle will turn up and
oh,
party.
they love it. It's a great party. It's a great day. They do a really good job. There's actually too many people there, but they've just redone all their facilities. And fortunately, like most of the time we complain that the race stalls are a bit too far away from the mounting yard at Newcastle.
Yep.
But on days like this where it's pumping, you actually want them to be a bit further away. But no, they do a great job getting young people into Newcastle for the Hunter. So if you're around, I'd highly recommend going.
Well, I've got a soft spot for Far Too Easy, but I think Opal Ridge can win. But now you've worried me because you're going to pot Opal Ridge. But anyway, there's other races at Newcastle. There's the Beaufort. It's a staying race over 2,300 metres. We won't talk about that for too long. Canberra Legend for Wallace, $4. Skylab, $5.50. Numerian, $5.50. Stockman, $7. They kind of take it in turns, these horses.
Yeah.
Look,
Canberra Legend is the class horse. It only had the one run in, and it had a tough run. It was 3 wide most of the way. It kicked for a while and then got swamped late. Probably what people don't realise when horses come over from Europe and are first up and have come straight off the plane, they've had 2 weeks pre-quarantine over there.
Yeah.
So there's at least a week before that, before they go into quarantine. They can still work. And then they come out here, they've got to do another 2 weeks. So they've missed a run or two that they would lead into it. So you could see a lot of improvement from Canberra Legend. But Skylab for... It's Perry's, isn't it? Skylab, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Skylab, P. Perry.
It'd be good for Paul to win one on his home track on a big day. So, but Canberra Legend, I think, is still the class horse in that field.
Yeah, because he was only 73 days between runs at York and Rose Hill.
Yeah, but 73, that's still 2.5 months.
Yeah.
You know, first up, and what was it, over 2,000, the Rose Hill Cup?
Yeah, Rose Hill, 2,000 metres.
Yeah, so like it's a tall ask, and what people don't realise, it was similar it's like being Vauban. You know, like it's like being Vauban.
I had begun to recover from being Vauban, and now you've brought it up again.
But there's a difference between the way they do it in Europe, where they can run over big trips first up because they've only got to run it out. It's a war of attrition, compared to Australia, where you have to sprint at the end of distance races. It takes a different type of fitness. So I'm expecting to see quite a sharp improvement from Canberra Legend.
Hey, just quickly, the Spring Stakes over a mile. Not sure if the timing's right for this race. You know, maybe it used to be a bit of a lead up to the Spring Champion Stakes. But anyway, we're seeing a lot of horses in this field tomorrow. where I can see that the trainers are going, okay, I've got a decent horse here. I'm just going to put it in this to see how it measures up so I can map out an autumn campaign. And one of those is your horse, Just in Time, which won at $1.20 first up in its first start. You sent it to Melbourne for the Carbine Club Stakes on Derby Day. And now it runs tomorrow in its third start, $7. What do you got a little steer for us on Just in Time?
She's a nice filly. She'll be a lovely autumn filly. But is it coming up a little bit too soon? I don't know. It's worth a crack to try and get some black type. I mean, I think the favourite's Gay's horse that has come out of a Class 1. So it's,
yeah. The favourite is Invincible Spy.
Came out of a Class 1 at Gosford.
It's won a maiden, it's won a Class 1, and now it's in this race.
So it's not a vintage sort of race, but nor anything over a mile for 3-year-olds. We decided to bring her back home after running in the Carbine Club. She was 1,200 into a mile, so she didn't quite see out the mile second up in her second ever start, so there should be natural improvement. But just to go through, like, there have been some pretty good winners of the spring stakes. Like, we've got Prazir won the spring stakes.
Yep.
I Love This City. Magic Albert was another. Like, it can produce a half handy horse. The
They've
spring
gone on to be
stakes.
stallions, yeah.
So it's I look, $7 about her mark, I think, but I do think she'll run a good race.
Okay, rightio, just in time to run a good race. We'll go to Melbourne. The 1,000 Guinea Skybird for Mitch Friedman, no relation.
No.
Is 3 from 3, is $3.60 favourite. Core Volante, one on Caulfield Cup Day. It's only been beaten once. It's at $4. Jolie Star keeps running second for Chris Waller, $7. Has J-Mac on top, provided he gets over the flu, because he was stood down.
Is that what he was stood down for, the flu? He might have COVID.
He might have COVID.
It's going
You
around.
just it's everywhere. You just don't have to say it anymore.
No. So, look, I'm sure J-Mac will get up for a Group 1. He's pretty good
race.
at that.
I don't mind Core Volante there.
Oh, I'm a big Skybird.
You think
fan.
Skybird?
It was a huge run at Moonee Valley, coming from last.
Just bang, bang.
Look, Mitch Friedman's in a better run of form than almost any Friedman. So maybe the outside Friedman he's flying.
The Friedman who's not a Friedman.
He had attrition as well.
Yeah.
He could pick up another Group 1. But yeah, look, 1,000 Guineas. It's not usually a vintage sort of race, but it's better than it has been in a while.
I tell you what's a good race is the Sir Rupert Clarke over 1,400. I Am Me, as you've told us, will be starting in it. It's about $8 straight. Ace Ed Cummings about $8. Skew Whiff, good win at Flemington during the carnival, $18. Ayrton, good win first up, beaten last start, $12. Magic Time from Sydney's the narrow favourite, $3.80. Buffalo River will lead. He's won 2 races over 1,400 at Caulfield recently by leading. He won't lead all the way in this race. They're probably a bit too classy. And then there's Villana, Damien Oliver's last ever Group 1 in Melbourne. Hasn't he's like, it's been a tour of duty. Last thing for this Oliver. Last thing
he deserves a victory lap more than most, I'd say.
Does, yeah.
So,
did you like one there?
I like Straight Acer. I do actually. I thought it'll be interesting.
That'd be a win for Ed Cummings.
But it would. But I'd just like to. I'd be interested to know if that Golden Eagle form's going to hold up. So, be interesting anyway.
Yeah, for sure and certain. I might have a little bit each way on Skew Whiff after its win in the carnival. Okay, you ready to unload on one?
I am.
I've got the jitters now. I had Opal Ridge in the Hunter.
Oh, you've
sayonara'd it. Oh my God, I'm going to stick with it. Stuff you.
Look, I love Lukey Pepper, good friend of mine. I'd love for him to win it. It'd be great for him, but I'm not sure the horse has come up. I'm a big Arkansas Kid fan.
Okay.
I don't know what it's the Blue Sapphire Stakes at Caulfield. The Hayes boys have had a big carnival, just narrowly missing on a couple of occasions, but I think it's quite a handy 3-year-old. It's 3 years, 3-year-old.
So Arkansas Kid is in the Blue Sapphire Stakes.
It's short enough. It's $2.60.
It's $2.60. It's the top weight there, D Oliver, but it's set weights.
Be good for D Oliver to have at least one winner on his last day. So.
Yeah, it ran 4th in the Coolmore behind Osmosis, which is good form for a race like this.
Yeah, it is. So and. I think it's the horse to beat there, but it's an even sort of meet, both meets, even sort of day. Are. There's plenty of value to be had if you can pick a winner, but
they always are just post carnival because you got to be. The one thing to be careful of when you're punting this weekend is
Horses that have
horses that have
peaked.
been set for it, or horses that have peaked and they're going, oh, it's worth so much money, I'll just give it one last
Yeah,
run.
that's right. That's
Be
right.
careful.
And that's why Marzu is vulnerable, I think. This isn't grand final day.
Not grand final. And this is what happened to all the stars last weekend when Pride of Jenny ran them off their legs again.
Yeah, God, she was good. That
The
was
other three were coming back from
That
the
was
Cox
a-
Plate.
proper. But that might have been so simple as well. Like
That she did it again.
she's just a quality mare. She's done it 3 times now.
I know.
Like we just keep discrediting her because, unfortunately, with those type of horses, when they hit the brick wall, they just really stop.
Yeah.
So, but when she's on at her best, she just runs them into the ground over a mile, just into the ground.
Amazing. She was great. Have a great weekend. Best of luck with Just in Time in the Spring Stakes.
Yeah,
Will?
I've got another one though
Oh, yeah. What else you got for us?
tonight at Canterbury.
So Canterbury, Friday
Yeah.
night racing's back. Yep.
Yeah, Jumeirah Beach in the 1550 72.
It won its last start.
Yeah, romped in on Oaks Day Ladies Day at Hawkesbury.
Yeah.
Just-
Jumeirah Beach.
Just getting the race up while we're here. Race 4, Canterbury. You get about $4, $4.40, and he's going pretty well.
Yeah, okay. Well, it won really well on that Ladies' Day at Hawkesbury. Okay, we'll do that, and we'll do that on Friday night. We'll get ourselves a bank for Saturday. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
Good on you.
All right.
With the summer of tennis right around the corner, Wide World of Sports has every angle covered.
From match highlights, press conferences, and every breaking news story, Wide World of Sports is your home of tennis.
So click that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing this summer.